It's absolutely great to be with all of you today. It's wonderful. I'm a statistician, as the introduction was provided. A statistician is a data scientist. And in the case of statistics, it involves my very first love in life, that is mathematics, as well as the scientific method. How do we formulate useful, precise questions to address them in our research? And most importantly, communication skills. And then today, the focus of this small lecture will be on the need for both me, you, all of us, to strive to ever increase our communication skills. I'll illustrate how these skills of increasing my communication skills and increasing my ability to listen to others helped me in my career. So as was stated, I work on how we can use data to improve the health of individuals who are suffering from chronic disorders. For example, addictions or mental illnesses, diabetes, and in some cases, some forms of cancer also have a chronic course. How we can use data and combine that with clinical judgment, clinical expertise, I focus my efforts on that aspect of how we can combine the two. So the first point was, as I said, was high quality communication. So some ideas here are to try to understand the issues from the other guy's point of view. Try to anticipate others' concerns and areas of confusion and proactively address them. Really try and see the world from their point of view. People are not born with high-quality communication skills. It's hard. We have to continually strive to build those skills. But it pays off. It really pays off in the long run. My experience is that high-quality communication skills are always valued and frequently will allow your ideas to have the greatest impact in society. Now, as someone who comes from the mathematical sciences, it's really easy for someone like me to conflate obscure technical language with brilliance. However, I find that the truly brilliant people communicate very difficult ideas with clarity. That's how you see brilliance, is in that communication. I want to tell you a story about how I began to realize that communication skills are so very important. About 25 years ago, I mainly spent most of my time communicating with mathematical sciences. It was quite a nice situation. And I didn't really have a lot of desire to communicate outside of my discipline. But I learned that this attitude was not in my best interest. And here's how the story went. So I started working with behavioral scientists. This was about 20 years ago. And I joined a retreat where the scientists came together, and the goal of this retreat was to develop interventions for children in elementary schools who were exhibiting excessive behavioral problems. And it turns out kids who exhibit excessive behavioral problems, they're at very high risk for dropping out of school, addictions, and so on. So it's really important to try and help them. Okay, so what was my role? My role was to explain to the behavioral scientists how we might analyze their data on children to develop a personalized adaptive reading tutoring intervention. I say it was to explain, because it's pretty clear to me now, looking back on that time, that I did not explain. In fact, I'm pretty sure I used statistician techno-speech. And what I did, I think I used language that had double meanings. One meaning in the mathematical, engineering, computer science field, and a very different meaning in the behavioral sciences. I'm going to give you an example of this. So in the engineering and mathematical fields, we use this word control policy, and it's associated with a set of really nice data analytic methods that are useful for learning how to personalize and adapt sequences of treatments to individuals. But I don't know about you, but I don't want someone using control policies to control my neighbor and get him to control his depression. I don't want someone using control policies to control me in my struggles to take my medications. The problem here is the terms control and policy have one meaning in the engineering and mathematical world, and they have a very different meaning in everyday life in the behavioral sciences. And I didn't really understand that at the time. You can imagine what it was like. So I'm going to go back to that story, this retreat, where we were at this retreat. These communication misunderstandings were so bad that the behavioral scientists decided that I needed to take a walk for the remainder of the day. So I had to leave, and they continued the retreat without me. Okay, it was a little depressing. So I began to realize I really need to do something about this, right? And so I started searching out brainstorming sessions with behavioral scientists, with social scientists, and I would go to these sessions. For about the first year, I would get about 10 minutes of what was going on because they were using such precise English. And for me, precision was all in mathematics. It wasn't in English. But I kept going. I kept trying. I kept striving. And then eventually, I began to get the ideas. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I'm here today is because I finally got the ideas. So related to communication skills is the need to carefully listen to other people. And this is something I have to strive every day to do. For example, when I teach or give a lecture at a conference, there's often someone in the audience, they'll ask me this question, and it indicates this level of confusion and misunderstanding. And it's really tempting for me to think, oh, I'll just, this person is lost, there's nothing I can do for them, I'll just give up on that person. But this is completely the wrong thing to think. It's not in my best interest even to think like that. Instead, I should turn around these questions and ask, how might I have communicated these issues, these complicated concepts with greater clarity? And not only that, often, too infrequently, the very confused question, once I think about it and think on it, holds some hints to a greater insight into the problem I'm trying to explain. And so in order to try and communicate with greater clarity, I learn how to understand my own problem better. Okay, I want to give you a little example of how someone gave comments to me, and by thinking about those comments, it helped me a lot. Okay, so this was a person who made a rather critical, and at the time it was unpleasant comment. I was only an assistant professor, so I was quite scared. As I mentioned to you, I work on how we can best personalize and adapt sequences of treatment to people who are struggling with a chronic disease. It turns out that there's some really cool computational and mathematical issues associated with this problem. I mean, it's really cool. It's a lot of, I really like it. Of course, I was drawn to that. So I go to give a lecture at another university about this area. And none of the people in the audience worked on these sequential decision-making problems. And I'm not sure how well I communicated any of the ideas anyway. So afterwards, one of the senior scientists comes up to me and he says, this work is, well, he was a little bit harsher, but I've calmed it down a little bit here. He says, this work is also technical, it has no clarity, I don't see the essence of the ideas. Why don't you restrict yourself to simpler problems, like problems where there's only 2 sequences of treatments instead of 3 or 30 sequences of treatments? So I'm listening to him, and I'm thinking, no way. This is going to eliminate all the cool mathematics. I don't want to do this. But it turns out I was completely wrong. I was incredibly wrong. So after I started thinking about this, I began to realize that by thinking of only sequences of 2 treatments, just one treatment followed by another, I could use those ideas that came up in thinking to modernize the clinical trial designs that we currently use in our society to investigate new therapies or new treatments. Right now, current clinical trial designs that what they do is they're designed to evaluate a treatment in isolation, not thinking of that treatment as part of a sequence of treatments. And these thoughts led me towards a newer type of clinical trial design. Again, thinking about what this guy said to me, it was a very unpleasant experience, but it led me to where I am today and how I got to come speak to you. I have two last very smaller points, and this second to last point is to always keep moving forward. I'm sure many of you, as you worked on your PhD, you'll resonate with this. Sometimes you just need to put one foot in front of the other. You just have to keep showing up. There's many times when I felt down. I break my ankle, my dog's died, the team I'm on is dysfunctional, a funding request is denied. It can all happen at once. You just try and live through it. You just try and continue on. And I've learned that things go in cycle. Sometimes I have to live through the bad things in order for the good. So try to keep that in mind as you go through these struggles, particularly in your research and your science and as you go through life. And the last point I want to make to you is, as I arrived yesterday at the Raleigh airport and we drove to Chapel Hill, it's just so beautiful here. The trees are all green, the grass is green, the weather is really warm. There's beauty in the art around here. There's beauty in seeing friends smile. I'm just so very lucky to be alive. We're all very lucky we're even here, that we're here to be alive and to experience this beautiful spring day. Never forget how fortunate all of us are. Thank you for allowing me to join you in this celebration.